All right, all right. Okay, so how's everybody doing? You about to be doing a tad bit better than you are right now. I can get these out of here. The gentleman I'm about to bring to this circle right here, massively successful. You will know him because he was massively and is massively successful. 4 children that in their own right are also very successful. Multiple best-selling books that were runaway bestsellers. He dwarfs me in best-selling books. A hit TV show that literally changed TV forever. Many of you in the room know him because he's probably the best marketer on planet Earth with the strongest brand in the world. Some of you will know this guy because he's a real estate mogul, but most of you motherfuckers will know him because he is the 45th president of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump. Like, let's go, guys, come on.
Thank you.
One more time, let's go. Come on, give it to him.
Thank you, Grant. Wow. That's quite an introduction, and I love these people. Look at these people over here.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Thank you very much.
So look, I just want to thank you so much for being here. It's an honor.
Well, I want to thank you, and this was unusual because usually they say, like, we want to draw a crowd. Grant said, no, I don't need that. I want to surprise people. So I don't know how many of you, did anybody know I was actually coming? Because he said, let's keep it secret. They must have known. They got that beautiful sign over there. Trump 2020, but it should be, you know, it should be Trump 2020 because we won that one pretty easily.
Okay.
We may have to do it again, that's all.
Okay. And he promised he wouldn't talk politics today, and then he told me, he's like, yeah, but, you know, in business, to take care of your family and business, really, politics matter. Okay, but I want to start with the business. You guys want to sit down? Is it all right if they sit down?
Sure, please.
Have a seat,
please.
guys. You paid a lot of money for
And we've got plenty of time for this guy.
I don't know if you guys know this. He bought me a driver because he saw me. I was playing golf with him, and he's like, why do you keep hitting that 3-wood? And I'm like, because that's the one I can hit. He's like, God damn, man, you need a real driver. And I showed him my other one. He's like, the reason you can't hit that driver is because it's a piece of shit. And he went and bought me a driver. So thank you. I need to get you to.
Well, thank you very much.
With everything that you have going on in your life, why would you even accept to do this weekend?
So I gained a lot of respect. We played golf together, and he's a good golfer, very good golfer, except he was afraid of this is, you know, he lectures you about things, but I have to say, he was a little bit afraid of the driver, right? I said, don't be afraid.
I had some fear.
Hit that driver. You're going to hit it longer. But we played golf. We became very friendly. We got along very well. He was at one of my places in Bedminster, beautiful place, a beautiful course. We had a great time. And I said, what the hell do you do, Grant? And he told me. I said, that's interesting. And then I heard he was the biggest and the best at what he does. And
10X.
And he did something very unusual, though. Seriously, he said, I'd love to have you come and speak. I said, was it a big promotion? No, I don't want anyone to know about it. I said, don't know. Explain it, because that never happened to me. It's always you get your signs all over the highways and stuff, right? He said, no, I want to surprise. These are great people. I'm sold out, 100% sold out everywhere. I just want you to come on, and I want to give them a little treat. So I hope I'm going to give you a good treat, because I'm doing it for that reason.
So the first thing that I'm curious about, and the thing that I admire the most about you, is your ability to handle like the criticism, the hate, the gossip, and like just the amount of things that are said about you. How do you handle all that? And by the way, when you get to the top, is that always going to come?
And the love. We have tremendous love, too. And I guess without that, you couldn't do it. But, we have a tremendous amount of love, and there is a lot of hate out there. There's a lot of hate in the country. We have a very divided country. It's probably more divided than ever before. I happen to think that we have a vast majority, because a vast majority of the people love our country. They hate to see what's happening. But, I learned a long time ago, if this would have been 15 years ago, if I got a little bad article, it would drive me crazy. It would, and today I couldn't do that. I would be crazy. I'd be crazy. And I think you just have to sort of say, like, we're going to just take it, whatever it is, we're going to take it. And you have to, a very smart man, Roger Ailes, explained something to me a while ago. He worked for both Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon. People like both, and people dislike both, but certainly they dislike Nixon a lot more. But Ronald Reagan had a really horrible, vicious article in the Washington Post, and he was with him, and he said, "I'm sorry about this article, Mr. President." And Ronald Reagan went, "Oh, don't worry about it. That's yesterday's news. They've already forgotten about it. Don't worry." Very calm, very easygoing. And that was sort of Ronald Reagan. And then Nixon had this horrible article in the Washington Post. "I'm going to get them. I'm going to destroy them." It killed him for 2 weeks. And it was very different. And the better way is to just sort of let it go off your back. And one thing about articles, you get a lot of press, and you get a lot of good press. I get a lot of press, both good and bad, and you just have to forget about it. And that doesn't mean you totally forget about it. You go after your enemy. I believe in that. You have to go after your enemy. And if you don't go after your enemy, you're a fool. Because we have a lot of bad people, and we have a lot of bad people in this country, and they're doing bad things, and we have to take care of it because we have to save our country. With all the business, and we want to talk business today, but I did say to Glenn one thing. With all of the businesses that you're in, if you don't have the right political leadership, if you don't have a good country, if you don't have a good system, you can work your asses off, and it's not going to help you too much. It's not going to help you too much. You need a system that works, and you need to have the right taxes. I cut taxes more than any president in history.
Yes, you did.
We cut regulations more than...
I appreciated that, by the way.
Yeah, and that's right. Congratulations. You're right. But we cut taxes, the largest tax decrease.
Appreciate that accelerated depreciation a lot.
You're right. But it was the largest tax cut in history, largest regulation. We have a lot of regulation people. People in business told me that the regulation cutting was more important. We gave you the largest tax cut, but the regulation cutting was more important to them than the tax cutting. I would ask people, actually, I'd say, if you had one or the other, not the regulations, one or the other, almost everybody took the regulation cutting. It's very interesting.
Let me ask you now, like on the come up, not the Donald J. Trump, the mega star, like a legend, living legend.
I knew I liked this guy. Right?
Back in the day, like, were you thinking success was? How were you approaching success? Was it something that was really important, an option? What was it?
I don't think I ever thought about success as success itself. I wanted to enjoy myself. I loved building buildings. I loved it. A long time ago, I invested a little money in a Broadway play. And it was just a little play, and it was fine. And the producer was a friend of mine. And I said, I'd love to do that. And he was trying to buy a house, and he knew nothing. He was getting taken advantage of by everybody. A smart guy, but he was being taken. And he sat down. He said, could you explain? And I explained to him. He said, you shouldn't be involved in Broadway. You knew too much. And this is when I was very young, like 18. And he said, you know so much about real estate, which was sort of natural. And I think we put show business into the real estate business, and I built a great business. You read so much stuff. My business is so strong, and it's so. By the way, is there a vibrator? What is that?
It's a vibrator.
What is that?
It's for my wife.
What is that?
It's.
I don't know. It's one of two things. Either it's a vibrator or this chair is collapsing.
It's the table turning. I mean, it's the stage.
Oh, okay. Am I safe in this chair?
Yeah, because you are safe.
No. If you were here,
we're all safe because you're here.
No, these. No, I've been here now for 5 minutes, and the chair keeps, and I'm trying to say, it's one of these fold-up chairs, and I don't want to fold up on the floor. That's no good.
That won't happen on my watch.
I don't want that scene of Biden walking up the steps of the airplane.
Well, he couldn't make it. He fall down on the way over here.
It didn't work out
Okay,
too
so
well.
look. How important is success? How important is money? And how important is money to success?
So, to me, success was important, but and I think this is true for almost everybody in the room. I think you have to love what you do. If you don't love what you do, you're not going to be successful. And I loved what I did. I did real estate. I went in early. I always loved sports. I would have loved to be any kind. I'm not a bad golfer, right? And, but I always
We
loved,
won.
We won.
We won.
We're going to always win, you and I. We're never going to lose.
They choked. They choked. Did they choke?
They choked.
They were chokers.
They choked like dogs, right?
Chokers and losers.
They choked. They were going down. They couldn't breathe walking down that.
Brandon Dawson.
So anyway, but no, I really, and I tell people, I used to do, before I did the political thing, I used to actually give speeches on success. And the company that I have, and you're seeing it more and more, and there's never been a human being that's been investigated more. I would say if you took Jesse James, Billy the Kid, and Alphonse Capone, better known as Al Capone, and added them up together, I've been investigated far more than any of them. And you know what? A friend of mine who's very successful said, you have to be the cleanest guy. I've gone through, from the day I came down the escalator, I've been under investigation. And it's crazy. And now one just dropped where they said, he didn't do anything wrong. And these are people that would like to do damage. And it's pretty amazing. So you have to be very careful. You're dealing with a lot of people, both good and bad, and you have to be very careful. But when I talked about success, I always started, you have to do something you love. If you don't do what you love, you're most likely not going to be successful. And you're going to have a lot of people, your parents included, they're going to be saying, don't do that, don't do that. And you have to listen to them. They're wise, they've been around, they've seen. And sometimes, and I tell people, sometimes they go into a business where basically you can't be successful. Nobody's successful. If you can get away from that, get away from it. If you can. But you have to make sure that you do something that you love. Try to go into something that you love that can be a good business. So, a lot of people go into businesses that
don't work,
are just not good. I used to say retailing. It's a very hard business. But then you see Walton. You take a look at Walton and the Walton family. But you have to do something that you love.
So, New York City, one of the most competitive, brutal, you like this, Ford?
And unfortunately, so many bad things have happened to New York. It's just so many people have moved down here, and they've moved away from New York. And New York, look, I love New York, the energy, the everything, but it's really changing, and it's changing rapidly. And that's a city, we have to save that city. Chicago, I mean, you look, in Afghanistan, we didn't have one person killed, one soldier killed in 18 months. And you look at Chicago, where they'll have a weekend where 77 people are shot, wow, and 4 people died. And it's a horrible thing going on in our country.
When you're in New York City, like one of the most competitive places in the world, how do you stand out as a young man? How did you stand out? What did you do? And then how do you stay relevant in that environment that's so vicious?
So when I was young, I wanted to, my father built in Brooklyn and Queens, the boroughs, and he did a great job. He was a very strong guy, but a good guy, a guy with a tremendous heart, but he was strong, very powerful type of personality. And he built single-family housing, whatever he built. And on Sundays and Saturdays, he'd go and he'd bring a little group of, I hate to say it, non-union people, and he'd sweep the floors and make everything perfect so that the next day on construction it was nice and clean for the expensive guys to come in. But he'd save the nails and the sawdust and the chips of wood, and he'd take them and sell them. I mean, it's like extreme, but he was very extreme. I'll give you a quick story. So we have apartment buildings, and I walked to my father's desk in Brooklyn. This is a long time, I was young. And there's a picture of a roach, a cockroach, on a can, like a paint can, a 5-gallon paint can, and it's sitting on his desk. I said, Dad, what the hell is that? The cockroach was turned upside down, dead. And it said, the name of the product was Bye Bye Roach. And my father said, this stuff is the greatest stuff we've ever used, but it's too expensive. I don't like it. So I'm sending it up to your uncle at MIT. My uncle was a great professor at MIT for many years, a very brilliant man. I think he's Dr. John Trump. I think he was the longest-serving professor in the history of MIT. So when they say Trump is smart, or when they say Trump is stupid, don't believe it, okay? But if they say he's smart, you can believe it. But my father, I said, what are you doing with that can? He said, it's too expensive. So I'm sending it up to your uncle at MIT. They're going to analyze it. He's going to send it back and tell me what ingredients are in. I said, what are you doing, Dad? He said, I can save $4 a gallon. I say, Pop, is it really worth it? He said, yeah, it's worth it. That's the way you make money. And to a certain extent, it's not penny wise. You got to save the pennies. You got to that's a great thinking. So he wants to take something that's expensive, that's good, and send it up to a laboratory at MIT, find out what the ingredients are, because he can save a couple of dollars a gallon. And that's a great, I tell that story, but to me it's a great story because that's the way it should be. My father spent a lot of time working. My uncle went to MIT. I think he had 3 degrees from MIT. He said, I was working for 7 years getting your uncle to go through school. But my uncle turned out to be a great person, a great scientist, and a great, brilliant man. But my father was equally brilliant in a totally different way.
But what Fred did, your dad's name was Fred, right? So he did amazing things. But what you did would dwarf what your dad did. You agree with that?
He was so proud. So he would never go into Manhattan. He said, no, we can't. No, that's because Manhattan, these are different times. He said, that's the big time. That's the big time. And I always wanted to go. I wanted to build buildings in Manhattan. And I was very much involved. I took an option on the site. They were having a hard time building a convention center. And I got an option, and they were building it in the wrong location.
What is an option?
I took an option to a piece of land that was owned by the Penn Central Railroad, and it was an option to buy the piece of land, meaning I had a certain number of years to execute this option. And I went to the city and state, and I said, you're building your convention center in the wrong location because they had massive cost problems, and they were building it in the water in not as good a location. And here I had land that was on the water, and so I went to them, and I convinced them to build it on my land. It was a great thing. And then I did the Commodore Hotel. I essentially ripped down the Commodore Hotel, built the Grand Hyatt Hotel, and we did a lot of things. And they were glamorous projects, and then ultimately I did Trump Tower, which is 57th and 5th. They call it the Tiffany location.
That was the first Trump building, right?
That was the Grand Hyatt was my first one, and then I did Trump Tower. I took from Bonwit Teller. I bought the Bonwit Teller department store. I took a contract on the Bonwit Teller department store. At the time, I thought I was paying a lot of money, but a lot of times in business, certainly with what's happened with us, with all of us, any deal you make and any time you sell something, it's a bad deal because you think it's a good deal. 2 years later, you're saying, I can't believe it. Look at Florida real estate. Somebody sells a house and they say, oh, did I get a great, these people, they paid so much. What a terrible deal they made. And then 2 years later, you feel like a jerk because, you gave it away. And that's been the case for many years now in good locations, in good areas. Like if you go to Florida, if you go to Manhattan, now Manhattan's changing a little bit, but hopefully it's going to come back. But people that sell their house in Florida, a friend of mine sold his house, and what's going on in Palm Beach is crazy, where they sell a house and somebody flips it for $20 million more the following weekend. Now those people feel like, you know what the word schmuck is? They feel like schmucks. A guy sells his house.
There are people from New York and California that are coming in and saying, hey, this is cheap here.
Yeah. Well, Palm Beach is very expensive, and I guess Palm Beach would be the most expensive in the country, maybe in the world. But people have houses, and, they bought them, and they've lived there for 30, 40 years. All of a sudden, they decide to sell, and there are many of these deals. This is not so unusual. Actually, Steve Wynn, who's a friend of mine from Wynn, he lives in Palm Beach, and he does it for sport. He'll buy a house, fix it up a little bit, and sell it. He doesn't need to do it, but he likes it. But people are making a tremendous amount of money. Now, when you sell your house, and it's a little bit stopping now because you don't want to be stupid. You don't want to feel stupid to yourself. But one man sold his house for $25 million, and the deal closed on Friday. And the guy that bought it flipped it for $44 million over the weekend. So this guy's reading about it, and I said to him, when are you getting a new lawyer and a new broker? That broker did not do a good job. But, they feel like fools. And now 25 is more money than he ever thought he'd get. But then they sold it for almost $20 million more over the weekend.
And for how long in your career have you seen prices continue to go up?
Well, I've only seen them go up. Now, we've had some periods.
Let's talk real estate.
No, but when you think of it, right? It's real estate. And I don't even know, because I have such respect for what this guy's done. I did a little check, and they said, who the hell is this guy? I did a little check, and you have a great reputation.
Who the hell is this guy?
You have a good reputation. I actually said, whoa. You know, it's very interesting. Normally, I'll get up and make a speech, and we'll do something like I'm going to Georgia this weekend. We're making a speech, and it's a big rally. And a lot of you people have been to rallies. We have rallies like no rallies. But with Grant, I said, what am I doing? What's the speech this morning? You know, I take a lot of time to prepare. I said, what am I speaking about? Oh, don't worry. You're sitting up, and he's going to be asking you questions. I said, that sounds like a good idea. And do you ever take questions from the audience? You ever do that?
Sometimes I do, you know, but it gets a little carried away sometimes.
I know people get carried away.
We're going to do that.
But they can, by the way, they can never embarrass you, right? Because sometimes the worst questions are
the best.
And the best for entertainment.
100. Because if you got enough common sense, you can handle anything.
You have to
tell people the truth and are transparent like you are.
Yeah. Well, you have to be able to handle that. Like with Biden, he'll get a question and it's over.
But let me ask you this now on. How much did real estate, what was it, in the 60s? So you're growing up in the 60s, doing real estate. Your dad's collecting rent, I imagine. I own a bunch of apartments. I got to get you invested.
Apartments, like apartments, right?
Yeah. So.
And he was a builder. He built things too.
Okay. And so, but you were collecting rent, right?
And
so how much of that assisted you when you're 25 years old in handling audiences today?
Well, I wouldn't say the collecting of rent. I think a lot of things that did, like we went to Cincinnati, we brought a job in the Queen City, Cincinnati, Ohio, and we bought it. It had 1,164 units, and it had almost every unit was vacant. And we bought it from FHA, Federal Housing at the time, and we turned it around. And I lived there for a year, and I turned it around, and then we sold it 2 years later. Somebody came up to me and said, this area is going really bad, and it's going bad fast. And we sold it, and it was a great experience. It's sort of like sinking a 3-footer in the first hole. It gives you confidence. If you miss the 3-footer, you got problems for the rest, right? But it's like, you know, doing well those first few holes, it gives you confidence. And it was very early in my career, and we bought it cheap. We bought it for almost nothing, and we sold it for a lot of money quickly. And that gives you a feeling of confidence, invincibility, really, in a way. And I had a lot of tremendous success early, and they started writing about me for whatever reason, you know, maybe because I was extraordinarily handsome as a young man.
10X? Come on, give it to him.
Well, it was, but no, I had a lot of success, and I got a lot of press, and a lot of people would say, how does he get so much press? And I don't know. I got a lot of press. I did jobs that were sort of like the word option. I love the word option because I would take options to the Commodore Hotel. Then I'd try and get financing. I always got it done. And we built something that was very nice and beautiful.
What would you remember what you paid for that option?
Oh, very little for the option. That was, again, I did 3 options. One was for the Commodore. One was for the yards, the railroad yards, where they now have the Jacob Javits Convention Center. So that was another one. Which, by the way, we retrofitted for COVID, and Cuomo didn't use it. You know, we did 3,000 units of beds, and they didn't use it, which we did a hell of a job for that whole mess, but they didn't use it. But it was retrofitted during the COVID period, a year and a half ago. I think this. I love, if you can get options and if you can pay very little, the word option is a beautiful word because if you can have that extended a little bit, you're really playing the market, if you think about it. And who even thinks about it? But you're playing the market. So if you get an option for a certain price, and I took options, and I was able to get it done, and with the Commodore, and we ended up building a really successful hotel for a long time. It's been a great success. I ultimately sold my interest to Hyatt Hotels, and it worked out great. We have another one, a beautiful job in Washington that we built, the Washington job, the hotel, and people love it. Washington has got to straighten out its act. You know, Washington, D.C. has to straighten out its act. But I love the real estate business. I love the creativity of real estate. And I think I always will. Even as president, I'd say, boy, that's a great site for a building, right?
You still see sites and like, that's a good location.
Everything I do. I mean, I see so much. I'll look at something, and that's what it was in my blood from the time I'm very young. I loved the creative process of building. Now, it's much more than just creativity. You have to be creative. You're dealing with unions. I mean, of course, this would never happen to me, but they do say you're dealing with the mob in some cases.
Not so much down.
No, that would never happen. Never. Less here, isn't it true?
For sure.
Yeah, less here. Here it's much different. Here you have, I mean, in New York City, not a building would get built without a union, and it's fine. And you also get very high numbers. Now the numbers aren't so good, and it's very interesting. People are now trying to go non-union. Not an easy thing to do, even a little bit dangerous to do. But it's very interesting to see how it changes. But down here, you really have, you call it a right to work. I mean, people have a right to work. It's a great thing. And I think it's going to stay that way for a long time.
How important do you think it is for this audience to have real estate as part of their portfolio?
I think real estate, Grant, is got to be part of a portfolio. It's been, first of all, there are tax advantages, depreciation. A lot of people, you'll look at a project and you'll have a loss. Now, not good for your ego, but it made money, but you don't pay tax, and it shows after depreciation you have a loss. A lot of times they'll analyze my stuff. They'll say, well, you lost money. I say, yeah, I lost money. But you're not losing money. In fact, that loss, you can carry it over to other jobs where you're making a profit. So real estate, from the standpoint of tax benefits, has been great. And that's largely remained the same. They haven't taken it away. They've tried sometimes. And the reason is it's such a big group. I say this. Ex-wives and husbands have the greatest because you can give back and forth with no taxes. That's because they have a big lobby, okay? They have the ultimate lobby. But real estate, too. It's such a big business. There are so many people heavily invested that the laws have stayed, generally speaking, they've stayed very strongly in favor of investing in real estate. So when you get depreciation, it's a real, I mean, depreciation's a real thing.
It's very real.
Yeah, it's real. There is depreciation, but there's also paper depreciation. And that's a great advantage to real estate that other businesses, many other businesses, don't have.
When did you decide that Trump would be a household name? Did you make that decision? Did it just happen?
So, interesting. I haven't told this story in a long time. But
that's what I want to hear. I want to hear those stories.
So I built the Grand Hyatt, and that was very successful. And then I got it done on time, on budget, under budget, actually. And it was hard because it was a renovation of the old Commodore Hotel. And I was looking to do another job in New York. And the best site was Tiffany. So Tiffany has always been, if you're in Iowa, if you're in California, if you're in any place, they always say the Tiffany location. They're referring to the Tiffany location in New York. That's considered 57th and 5th Avenue. So the Bonwood Teller department store wrapped around, much bigger than Tiffany, it wrapped around, and I was able to get it. I went to Nashville, Tennessee. I dealt with a company known as Genesco. They were in a lot of trouble. I read where they were in trouble. I called the head of Genesco, who was a very nice guy, but they were really in big trouble. And I bought the store. I was able to get it. I had the banks behind me. I had Equitable Life Insurance behind me. At the time, it was a very good company. And I was able to get it. And I had something that was unique. So I'm next to Tiffany, and Tiffany is only 9 stories, and you could have built much higher. And I said, I'd love to see if I could buy the air rights to Tiffany. And I met with Walter Hoving, who was a great man, an elegant man. He was the head of Tiffany for many, many years. He was a great gentleman. Tough as hell, by the way, but great. I always did well with very successful, very tough old people, okay? I don't know. I always did. Walter Hoving liked me. Other people liked me.
So if you had a prospect that you were trying to negotiate or do a deal with, if they were tough, that was good for you.
Well, even now, who do I get along with? I get along with the tough ones. The other ones I don't get along with so well. They say, oh, he gets along with President Xi of China. He gets along with Putin, who is a changed man, but he gets along with Kim Jong-un of North Korea, who's now back to sending intercontinental ballistic missiles. You read that today. And I say, that's a good thing that I get along, not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You know, people don't realize you get along with them, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. And we got along through strength. But getting back, and it was only through strength. With just one quickie. Ukraine would have never, this mess would have never happened. Would have never happened. And I will say, because I've never said this publicly, I might as well say it to you, because this will never get out of here because this is a very closed environment. Is that correct? So it'll never get out. But I said, and then we're going to get back to Tiffany. So I said, Vladimir, what do you feel about Ukraine? He told me very strong feelings about Ukraine. I said, listen, my father always said, take the lumps out. You and I have a great relationship. We get along. But if you go into Ukraine, I will hit Russia harder than it's ever been hit. Napoleon never got there because his army froze to death. Germany never got there because their army froze to death. There's never been a country that's been helped more by weather than Russia. You know that, right? It's true. Napoleon was ready to go in, but he had a woman that he was very much in love with for that night.
Women.
And he spent women, or probably more than one. Well, I just heard one. If you know something, let me know. So he said, we'll do it tomorrow because I'm busy tonight. And the weather went down to 22 degrees below zero, and instead of going in and having a victory, that's another thing. I guess that's a get it done. Just get it done. And same thing happened with Germany. But with Tiffany. So I bought the air rights to Tiffany. I got along with Walter Hoving. And in the deal, I had the right to call it Tiffany Tower. So it was going to be Tiffany. I bought that. I had the right to call it Tiffany Tower. Would have been great, right? Except I wanted to call it Trump Tower. And I went to people, and I was pretty well known because I was a young guy that was successful. They even recruited me at country clubs because they wanted young guys that were able to play golf. Clubs that maybe I wouldn't be able to get into today, right? They recruited me, but I was doing really well. But I wanted to call it Trump Tower. I'm saying, oh my God, I have the right. I bought the right. I didn't buy it. I got it with the air rights to call it Tiffany Tower. So I was going to call it Tiffany Tower. And I went to a friend of mine who was very smart, very streetwise. And I said, let me ask you a question. I won't tell you his name. He's sort of known, but a very tough guy, smart, but he has a lot of common sense.
What was his name?
Dennis is the first name. But I said, Dennis, let me ask you this question. I have this incredible, valuable right to call the building Tiffany Tower, but I want to call it Trump Tower. He was very young. That was a long time ago. I said, what would you do? He said, when you change your name to Tiffany, call it Tiffany Tower. Did you have? I never told that story.
That's hilarious.
I never told that story. So I called it Trump Tower, and I'll say this. It was very hard for me to use the name. In other words, I felt like sort of very self-conscious. Trump Tower. Now,
that was the first time you put your name.
That was the first time I put my name. And I said, I'd be in the room, Trump Tower. I felt it was too out there. It was like crazy. But then all of a sudden, in a fairly short period of time, and now, Trump Tower is a great success and always has been from the day it was built. But I called it Trump Tower and said, but I never forget, he said, when you change your name to Tiffany, call it Tiffany Tower. But right now, your name is Trump. Call it Trump Tower. Pretty good, right?
So you just kind of, I want you guys to hear that he put his name on it and then kind of grew into the idea that his name would be on many, many things. Is that right?
So my name was on many buildings. I did the West Side Railroad Yards. That goes from 59th Street to 72nd Street. It was very, very
all the way down here to Doral.
Yeah, it was a tremendous success. Trump Doral. I'm going here after this. I'm going to Doral. I figure, what the hell? He's got me halfway down from Palm Beach. I might as well go the rest. But that's Trump National Doral now. And I use the name very much. And I will say, though, when I decided, because I think this is important part of your concept of questioning, when I said, because I've been thinking about running for president, and a lot of people said, oh, he's going to run, and that's gone on for 20 years, 25 years. They thought I was going to run. Once I went to New Hampshire like 30 years ago, and they said, he's running for president, because, you're going to New Hampshire. Why is he in New Hampshire? He's running for president. I wasn't. But it was always speculated. And then when Romney, who did so poorly when he ran, But during the Romney thing,
were you thinking about it?
Yeah, no, I was thinking. Well, I was
thinking
thinking about it with Romney, but I had just signed this long-term extension on The Apprentice, and it was hard. I went to NBC. I was going to run instead of Romney. I was going to, I was way out. Right? I was way out polling this guy. Who wouldn't outpoll him? It's bad news. But so Romney. So I didn't run then. But I never forgot it. I think it was on NBC, Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd. It's called Meet the Fake News, Meet the Fake Press. So they had a poll, and I was out polling Romney, and I wasn't running. So I said, well, that's pretty good. So I had that in my mind. And then we did it the next time, and we did great. And we did great twice. We did better the second time than I did the first time. But, so it's sort of interesting. But when you do that, your brand changes. So I believe I had the greatest brand in the world. Everything I was putting up was doing great. And now in a certain way, I think I have a better brand, but it's a very much different brand. Because when you run in politics, you lose, you could say 50%. I don't think it's 50. But when you run, so now a building that you build where you have 100%, and if you look at people like Ralph Lauren and other people that have good brands, they're very apolitical. They don't get involved. I've had many people say, I love you.
Because they're worried about the cost.
But they don't want to lose
the
50. No, they don't want to lose 50%. Yeah, they don't want to lose 50% of their audience.
Yeah.
So, you look at some of these people that have done a great job. I was saying the other night, Dolly Parton. I love Dolly Parton. Is she political? And they say, she never talks about it. Now, I know she's political. I know she loves me. Okay, she comes from
won't talk about it.
But you know what? She won't talk about it. She doesn't talk. The other night, though, Kid Rock was on. Did you see that on Tucker Carlson? And Kid Rock has a different attitude. He's all in, all time. He said, "This guy's great. This guy's the greatest. Compare him to that other guy, the guy," and he was so good. And I called him. I actually said, "That was really nice. Thank you." Because a lot of people, whether you're a musician or something, you lose a lot of your audience if you're all in for one side or the other. So the brand, it becomes different. And now that I'm out, but I'm not out, I guess, because it's so, you see what's going on. But I'm playing with. I love to do that's why I'm going to Durrell. I love to do the real estate thing. I love it so much, but I also love politics. It's crazy, right? They impeached me twice, 2 fake impeachments, the Mueller witch hunt. I had more witch hunts, impeachment. And I'm telling you, not that it's pleasant. One thing you have to learn about yourself, can you take it? Because if you can't take it, and I've more people have said...
Can that be developed? Can you develop...
I don't know. I think, because I know guys that I thought were tough, and they got under pressure, and they were unable to take it. I won't tell you what they did, but they were unable to take it. And I don't believe you can. I think you have to be born with something that you can take it. Well, you're born with something that you can take it. If you have rough times, you learn a lot about yourself. And I had a beautiful life. The greatest day of my life was the day before I announced I was running for president. It's true.
That was the last day of the best day of your life.
No, you know what? My company was the strongest. I had unbelievable, everything was perfect. And then I said, let's run for president. And a lot of people said, I gave up a lot. I gave up a tremendous, but very few people have done the job we've done. When you look at all the things we accomplished, they can't take them apart.
Come on. God damn it. So, if you run again, what will the slogan be? If you run again, what would the slogan be?
Slogans are very interesting, right? Because
do you get your slogans kind
let's pretend this is part of real estate, because we're here to talk business, but this is business too. So I came up with this idea in 2015, 2014. I thought it was Make America Great Again. MAGA. It had great. And then what I was going to do is, second, it was going to be Keep America Great. I thought it was great. it never had the beautiful impact. But what happened is, when the Democrats got in with all of these things that are the inflation, the this, the that, all of this stuff is both. Look, inflation has always been very good for real estate. But unfortunately, at the end, the whole thing pops. Okay, that's the bad part, and you haven't seen that yet, and hopefully you won't. Hopefully changes will be made, substantial changes, and you won't see that. But inflation is a good thing for real estate, not a bad thing for
Very
real estate.
good.
Okay? So I have to tell you, this inflation, but it's bad for other parts of the country, and it's very bad. Ultimately, it explodes. Inflation is wonderful until it all explodes, and you got to be careful of that. You have to watch it. But I had Make America Great Again, MAGA. This is MAGA country, right? And so I was going to use it and keep it, but we had really done so well. Then we got hit with the COVID. Then we did a great job with that. We came back, and the market was actually higher when I left. But I was going to say, keep America great, and I can't use that term because our country's gone down so much, we can't use that term. Sometimes you have to change terms. So we're saying make America great again, because we made it great. Now we're going to make it again.
What do you?
But I'll take off the second again because people think I'm kidding. But it's sort of a cool term, make America great again.
Beautiful. What do you think about 10X America?
I like it.
I mean, you're the master. What do you think? Does it work?
I just said to Gwen, I said, that hat looks very familiar to me.
It's a complete knockoff.
So I'll tell you about this man because I can tell you. So this hat is made in America. And we can buy a hat that's not actually as good as this, but most people wouldn't know the difference, for about, I would say, 15% the price. Made in China, made in different places, right? Made in Vietnam, made all over the place. But I was very impressed. He showed me this. I said, why did you do this? He said, because I felt it was very important to buy a hat made in America. But you know how evil the competition is? I think it was the New York Times called, and the hat, we proudly say this hat is made in America. It's a great hat, high brim. It's like an advertisement, right? And you don't need advertisements. But they called and they said, we've analyzed your hat, and we think your reporting is wrong. Why? It's not made in America. Yes, it is. It's made in America. They took the thread, they took the whole hat apart, and they sent the thread out for laboratories.
Oh, my God.
To think of this.
That's crazy.
And they found out the thread it turned out it wasn't, but they thought the thread may have been made in a different country. These are the people we're dealing with, But that is a handsome hat. Isn't it nice?
Let's go! Let's go! So are you going to run? Will you run? Look at it. We'll save it for you, Carlos.
They're fighting over it.
Johnny, give it to Carlos.
So,
Carlos, give it to Carlos, Johnny.
Thank you, Johnny. Hello, Carlos. Whoever the hell you are, Carlos.
Beautiful women have just been...
It's beautiful women, yeah.
Your whole life.
Women. Very handsome men. It's never been my thing, but they're handsome nevertheless. Is my hair messed up too much?
You're looking good. You're looking great.
Got to be.
You look awesome, by the way. I want to tell you, you're looking younger than when I saw you at golf, and younger than when you looked in 2016 when you decimated the establishment Republican.
Somebody said, but that's good. Well, a lot of presidents get out, they don't look so good. And I don't think any president's been treated more miserably than me. You know who they say was the worst? Abraham Lincoln. They said he was treated the worst of any president. You know, he had a civil war going on, but Abraham Lincoln. Andrew Jackson was horribly treated. What they said about his wife, what they said, he loved his wife, and they said horrible things about his wife. By the way, our First Lady's very popular, I tell you.
Amazing woman.
So popular. She lets it roll off her back pretty good, but she was very successful, very good, and she loves this country. But Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln were treated horribly. I said, and about 2 years ago, they used to say, nope, Trump's not even close. Now they say he was treated the worst, okay? He was treated the worst, and you have to handle it. I'm looking at it very seriously, obviously. I'd love to give you the answer that you want to hear, and that most of the people hear. Is there anybody that would like not to hear that answer? I mean, I don't know. We have a good
Willie, run. Willie, run.
I better be careful. You always have to be careful when you do that. People stand up and they say, but, you know, because of the ridiculous campaign finance laws, you can't announce early and you're not allowed to do it and all that stuff. So we'll wait till the appropriate time, but I think people are going to be very happy.
Beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. So, because you have experience in things I do not have experience in, like if I ever ran. I mean, you know, I'm 64. I just turned 64, so I got it.
How old are you?
64.
You gotta be kidding. No, seriously, look, sometimes I see people, they look horrible, and they say, one man comes up to me, and he gained, obviously, massive amounts of weight. And you want to make him feel good, so you say, you've lost weight. And they never say yes. They always go, rah. They want to get on to the next question, right? But you do look good. You're 64. That's amazing.
Thank you very much.
So you keep doing
From one handsome man to another.
Keep doing what you're doing, right? That's great.
Thank you. So what advice would you give me?
So if you wanted to, first of all, you love what you do. I don't know that you'd love the other, because you do this and everyone adores you. You got these great articles that I read all about you. I read so many articles. I just wanted to see about this guy. I know him a little bit from the standpoint of sports. Then we got to know each other, but I never really studied what he did. You've done such an incredible job. Number one, I mean, what you've done is so, and you've made a lot of people rich. You know what you've done? Because he really has, what he does, and there are some others that have done a good job. I don't think like you, but you've made people rich. You've made them happy. You've taken care of medical, people that would not have had the courage to go out and do, whether it's in real estate or other things, they wouldn't have had the courage to go out without what you do. I think if you would, first of all, you would automatically have my vote. I don't know if you're a Democrat or a Republican. I don't care. You have my complete and total endorsement. You know my endorsement, by the way?
Bam!
My endorsement. Now he's going to run. Now he's going to run as a super liberal, right? And I'll say, that's terrible. I endorsed him. That's not good. But it's very interesting. You would be such a great politician because you have the way. You need the way. I guess you need somewhat of a look. It doesn't have to be a look like you look like Cary Grant. We don't have a Cary Grant today, right? We used to have Cary Grant, Clark Gable, Errol Flynn. Today we have nice people, Ben Affleck. And the women, we used to have Vivian Leigh and all these magnificent. Today we have Rosie O'Donnell. What the hell is going on?
The world. I'm telling you,
we have the people. We have the people that are just as beautiful. They're so beautiful. You'll go out and you'll see people and you say, why isn't that woman a big star? She's so beautiful. Why isn't that guy a star? But these guys that make the movies, they don't understand that. They used to have people that really knew, right? MGM, Louis B. Mayer. These guys you would have loved these guys. You would have loved, I know you would have loved these guys. But I think if you ran for politics, just let me know because you will be very successful. Because you have.
What advice would you give me?
Well, the biggest thing is that, number one, you really could do it because you have a natural instinct. When you say advice, you have a natural instinct. But the biggest thing you can do is to let people know about yourself, let people know about your views. You have some interesting races going on right now. You have a guy named Dr. Oz who's been on television for 18 years. And people say, how will he do? I said, well, that's a poll. Because when you're on television, one thing about television, like with The Apprentice, I did The Apprentice for 14 seasons, 12 years. It was very successful, became on many nights the number one show on television. It was a great, it was really amazing success. And when I actually knew that I was going to do this, they wanted to give me a 5-year extension, NBC. Can you believe? And I said, well, one good thing about this, NBC will treat me great. They didn't treat me good at all. They treat me terrible. They're horrible. I hate them. But I would have assumed they would have, but they came up, they wanted me, and I turned it down. And they said, nobody's ever done that. Everybody wants to be on primetime television. Why would they? But I've done it. I did 14 seasons over a period of 12 years. It was so successful that they had one season where it went 3 hours. Do you remember that? Longer than Gone with the Wind. I said, it's too long. I couldn't watch it. It was too long. And everybody wanted to see the boardroom. They didn't want to see all the other stuff anyway. I kept saying, look, they just want to watch the boardroom. But we did it 12. And then who do they go out and get? They get Arnold Schwarzenegger, and who's a big Kasich supporter, right?
Nobody remembers.
And then he supported Hillary Clinton. And I said, well, in fact, they asked me, because I owned the show with Mark Burnett, they said, would you rather have Arnold be really successful? So I'm now out, and that's when I knew I was going to run, because I said, all right, I'm out. I told them I'm not doing it. So they had to pick somebody. They picked Arnold. They said, somebody asked me, would you rather have him be a massive success with the show or a tremendous failure? Now, if he's a success, I make money because I have ownership. If he's not a success, that's not so good, right? But it makes me feel good. So I said, I'd probably rather have him be a failure. And he was. He was a big failure. And then you had Martha Stewart that took over. She went and she did a version of The Apprentice. And that was a big bomb. So in a way, I'm happy about that, Do you understand?
Well, you made it work for sure. Last question, okay? Do you guys appreciate him being here?
Thank you.
And hey, look, we didn't practice any of this. Like he didn't like this guy.
Did I ask you what you're... Okay, ready?
Nothing.
I didn't say to Grant, do me a favor, would you give me a list of questions? Most sane people, we're up here in front of actually millions of people, because do they have their recorders on or no? Probably. They snuck them in.
Well, it depends on your secret.
Let's put it this way, in this room. But I never said, would you do me a favor? Would you give me a list of the questions?
Right, 100%.
You got to be able to be a little nimble.
You guys, I've done a bunch of these, and like most of the time, it's like I need to see every question, don't deviate, don't move, and this guy was like, whatever, let's roll. So, last question. This guy, by the way, I just want to remind you guys, this is perfect example, whether you voted for him or not, okay? I didn't bring him here for the politics. I brought him here because he is an example of what is possible in America. He did something that has never been done before. This guy ran for office one time, or twice now, but the first time and won the...
I won twice. And I did better the second time.
I didn't mean to say that. Stay away from me. Fucking guy right here. This guy. These guys ever smile that you bring with you?
Hello. Yeah, they're smiling. Look.
Last question. What is the term? This is a bit promotional too. I'll just set you up on it. What is the term? You don't mind that, do you? I love you, man.
I have no idea what this is, but this is going to be
What does the term 10X mean to you?
Well, making our country and your lives and your businesses 10 times more, 10 times better, right? Wouldn't you say? 10 times better?
10 times.
I have no idea. In fact, I came in, I said, that's a strange, and I never asked him. I didn't know you were going to ask me this question. But to me, it would be making your lives 10 times better.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, 45th President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump. Come on.